Hello, everybody, and welcome to OpenExO Live. Really good to be with you this evening for me, or morning or afternoon for you, wherever you're watching this. If you are with us live, really great to have you. This week, we have Ann Ralston with us. And as you can see, there's some amazing people coming up in the coming weeks. We do have an open slot for an amazing woman from within our community on the 9th of June. So if that is you, please do head over to the marketplace and sign up, or contact me and join us on OpenExO Live on the 9th. Before we get Ann up on screen, I do have some words from our community members. A few community members shared some words. The first one's from Gyang, and she just said, Ann is an amazing EXO coach. She truly knows how to work with teams to transform their mindset. She's able to understand where each member is and both challenge and inspire them to think exponentially. Next, from Kelsey, I've witnessed Ann help companies create initiatives resulting in hundreds of millions of dollars of returns, all while simultaneously improving their company culture. Her expertise, passion, and dedication is life-changing to the individuals that she's coached. It's always a pleasure to work with her. We then have from Emily, Ann Ralston is a talented EXO coach and head coach. She is trained in a vast array of innovation processes to fit any client need. Her passion for helping people become the best innovators they can be, and deep intuition inspire teams to truly 10x results. And then the last one comes from Jabeen. Anytime I have had the pleasure and privilege of working with Ann, I have been so impressed by her breadth and depth of knowledge and dedication to excellence for clients, participants, and coaches alike. She skillfully uses storytelling and anecdotes to really drive home important concepts and points that elevate the level of understanding and generate transformational aha moments. I have learned so much from just watching her in action. She's an excellent role model, and to know her is to see her as a valued and influential longtime member of the OpenExO ecosystem. So with that, let's welcome up Ann onto the screen. Ann, how are you doing this afternoon for you?
It is afternoon, and after listening to those quotes from friends and people in the community, I am amazingly humbled, quite frankly. I did not expect that, but that's lovely to hear that kind of feedback from our colleagues in the community.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's my favorite part of the show, is reading those out without people knowing they're going to be here, because it's so inspiring that we have this community of people around the world that often have never met each other. Sometimes we have, but have been able to work together on different projects and do some amazing stuff. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you actually came to join this community.
So I live in Michigan, in northern Michigan, in one of the most beautiful places in the world. I think it's my soul place, which is why we moved here. I'm just blessed to be here. But I've been in the consulting and coaching business for about 25 years with my husband, Gary, which many of the community members also know Gary. Gosh, in that experience as a coach and consultant, we've gained lots of different technologies and training and on and on. And so through a community called Scaling Up, Gary actually was introduced to Salim's work right after the book came out. So it's been years, like literally years. And we did the first Growth Institute coaching, exponential organizations coaching program. and then ended up in Madrid, and this is like 2016, 2017, ended up in Madrid. I think some of the people who I met, it's like I remember meeting Emily and Augusto and Bihao and just like, Jabin, tons and tons of people who have become good friends back then. And since then have had the pleasure of mentoring new coaches through the Growth Institute program. I think we were the first from the scaling up world to come over into and be a part of the EXO world. And so I know there are a lot of other coaches who now have done that as well. So that's how we joined the community, kind of from the side door at the time everybody else was coming in through Singularity University. So it was really exciting and changed my world, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually remember the first time I think I interacted with you was actually when you and Gary were building the tools for the Growth Institute course. So for the second course, it was for the third course. I also was on the Growth Institute course, and that's sort of, I'd read the book, and that was my first entry point before joining the community. And I can remember helping out on some of those tools. Not as Kevin, the sort of chief community officer, but just as Kevin, a wannabe consultant. So yeah, it's always so interesting to see how people came in and joined, and having sort of been here for quite a while and since the start. Can you share what it is that your MTP is, either yours or Ralston Consulting's?
Yeah, I'll share mine because mine is Awaken Humanity, and that's big and broad and vague, and I've tried to refine it, but I find it still drives my passion. It's like, why do people think the way they do? Why are people disengaged from all of the things that are going on in the world? Why are some people so abundantly minded and others are hiding? They're not, they're not a part of all the wonderful, amazing things that are changing. And so it's driven me through a number of different areas. And so it's like, well, I'm not going to change it. I'm hanging with it. I like it. So Awaken Humanity.
Awesome. That is really great. And I often wonder exactly the same thing. There's all these cool things that are happening, and people just don't seem to see it. And so being able to help that is really important. Now, you, as you said, I mean, you were part of that sort of like original Growth Institute course, and then have gone through many of the certifications, and have also mentored and coached on a lot of certifications and trainings as well. What would you say are sort of all the learnings from that you've potentially gained?
So I was thinking about this, and thank you for asking me to do this, because it's made me go way back in history and just revisit all of the amazing things that we've done. The very first thing we did was, I think we were the first or second cohort, Gary and I, with, and I think Jabin was in it. I'm trying to think. Gary was listing off some of his colleagues, the other folks that were on his team, but the original, the first or second coach certification. Yeah, it was back in the day, but that was fun and interesting. And the biggest insight I got out of that was I can learn faster than I thought I could. And we had to, right? I mean, we put ourselves, even though it was half a sprint, we put ourselves in the same energy and dynamic and learning mode for basically a case study, right? But after that, where my real learning started was I joined one of the Fast Track Institute sprints with Medellin. I was doing the air quality one with Mihal and Jabin and Luciana and some other people, and actually doing that work, actually seeing the impact, actually doing the research. and understanding how it could, it engage the community and what could come out of it was a very, very powerful learning. Followed shortly after by the Stanley Black and Decker sprint, which was one of the very early sprints. And again, I got to be the recorder on that. In a way, I was disappointed I wasn't a coach, but I think the recorder role is actually the best role because you have this higher point of view and you get to see people. You get to see people struggle, and you get to see them have their aha moments and their holy shit moments, like we're so screwed, holy cow, and you get to see them come alive. And like week 3, something clicks for people, and they start thinking faster and taking in more information and asking what if questions. And so being able to look at that, the whole arc of the sprint as a reporter is very different than being in the sprint as a coach or as a participant. It gives you a totally different point of view. So it's a really good way to see the ebb and flow, the energy, the diverging and converging pattern of a sprint. So that was super useful. Gary and I also did our own sprint with a client, which learned a whole lot. We learned a whole lot about doing. It was a 2-team sprint with a small aerospace company, and I was the core coach. My team ended up doing edge initiatives, and so it was. Sorry, I'm hoping that's not coming through, but anyway, it was fascinating. Everyone is different. Every company is different. Every situation that they're facing is different. The challenges that they're facing. Probably the most challenging was an oil and gas sprint that I was on that had just big organizational changes that came right in the middle of the sprint. And it was really wonderful to see the people have the energy around what we were doing, and hard to see the people dealing with the trauma created by a big reorganization.
No, absolutely. And so, obviously, as you've said, I mean, every sprint, even though the process is the same, they tend to be different because of the teams, the people. And so as a coach, I guess, I mean, some people might ask, well, how do you then actually manage that and know that we're going in the right direction?
Well, and that's a good question, because part of it is the head coach, right? I mean, so because I've done both roles, coach and head coach, and as the head coach, it's your job to help drive that direction, to interface with the client, to make sure that's all moving in the direction it needs to, and in a way protect your coaches from that. They need the information, but they don't need to be in the drama or the excitement, where the head coach is right there with the client and the sponsor and all the stakeholders. As a coach, how do you deal with it? You have to think and rethink and rethink. You have to stand in people's shoes and look at. This is another piece that's been super useful. Is regarding mindset, is to being able to shift your perspective, right? So as a coach, you've got to stand in the role of the participants. You also have to understand the role of the stakeholders. You also need to be able to help the team stand in the role of the customer. So you as a coach have to be able to shift that point of view, and then being able to take that back into your work life, whatever you're doing. I think it helps with your point, if we think about abundance, if you can see things from many points of view, you have the possibility of being even more abundant, because you have a different level of compassion than if you were just running straight forward on a single linear track.
No, absolutely. And that difference between coaching and consulting. I mean, I know there's times where your team's really struggling and sort of the consultant in you says, let's just do it for them, which is not really the point. Have you found those situations happening? I mean,
Yeah,
I have, but it'd be interesting to hear, your thoughts and how you actually dealt with that.
Yeah, and for the most part, your job as a coach is to help the team think, rethink, explore, come up with possibilities, sort the possibilities. But there are times that they do hit a point where they're spinning, and you actually need to be a little more directive, but you also need to be able to step out of that directive role and back into the role of coach. But ultimately, I mean, the role of the coach is to help the sprint team be successful. So it's kind of like, what's it take? What do we need to do for that?
Absolutely. Now, you of course, I mean, you mentioned that you actually came into EXO through strategic coach, and I know, having chatted with both you and Gary, there's a lot of innovation frameworks that you have, studied, use. How would you say, sort of EXO fits into that?
Well, first, it's scaling up, and metronomics is really the way I came in. So scaling up and metronomics both are what I would call execution frameworks. And they are, I don't want to describe them. They're like the framing of a house. You can do a lot with them, but you can decorate the house however you want. You can put the paint, whatever you want on it. So I love both of those frameworks as a way to help the companies that we're working with be successful in executing. But where EXO fits into that, or lots of other technologies, lots of other frameworks, thinking frameworks, is that it allows people to, you could do a full-out sprint and try and implement the EXO attributes in a company or in an initiative. Or if you're a middle market company, what we found is that the resources required to do a full-out sprint, they can't give 50% of their people's time to a sprint. So how can we do it anyway? And my thinking is, we'll do it one attribute at a time. Why not? Because all of the attributes line up to rethinking and innovating how the organization is operating in some way, shape, or form, or disrupting itself, or the industry that it's in. So I love, my favorite attribute is experimentation. Every company can experiment and learn to do it really well, which is the first step in really creating a culture of innovation. Without that, you can't do a lot of the other things. So, taking small baby risks and trying them and learning from them, and helping the leadership in the organization be okay with a little bit of messy mistakes and just learn from it and move forward. So that's where I like to see that start. And then move on into things like, let's say you take on social next, and you use the social technologies to help the communication move faster in the organization, which moves you closer to autonomy, which moves you closer, and then you get into the data. And so you're just starting a snowball rolling by starting with one attribute.
Absolutely. I mean, I often say, a lot of organizations may say, "Oh, I don't think we can implement this," or "I'm too small," or "We're too big," or "We're too bureaucratic," or "We're too," and of course these are all immune system responses in essence, right? And when you can say, well, let's at least spend time mapping out like an EXO canvas of today and a potential EXO canvas of tomorrow, and then just start the process. I think that's so important. Do you think that there's something though that organizations need even before that to actually say, oh, this exponential thing is something I need to do?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. They need a purpose, and I've had when I mentor teams, especially from the Growth Institute, which focuses on in scaling up, and in metronomics they focus on purpose, not MTP or TP, whatever. I try and explain that you start with a purpose, and a purpose is the why you exist, and a transformational purpose is why you're changing. And a time-based transformational purpose is one with a time-bound window, and a massive transformative purpose is a huge transformation that you're trying to create. So one of the things that you see happen is people make an assumption that they have to do it all, but they don't, especially little, smaller companies. So the execution frameworks that we work with are quarter-driven, quarter by quarter reporting with like 13-week sprints within those quarters. So who's to say that you couldn't take an attribute in a quarter and run it through its own 13-week sprint, and then use that execution framework to guide the changes that are becoming, that are coming out of that. So that's kind of how I think about it. But I think it starts with people waking up and saying, either I'm going to change because I see the world changing, or having that kind of holy crap moment, I am behind. And I just remember this guy on our Stanley Black & Decker sprint that thought he knew a lot. He was in security. He thought he knew a lot. And he came on one day and he said, oh man, I was doing research all weekend and we are so screwed. We're so far behind. And at that moment, he really engaged. And they did amazing work. They actually did amazing work. But sometimes it just takes that moment for people to say, it's time to change. Let's go. Right.
No, absolutely. And it's always a pleasure chatting to you. I always end off by asking, what is one thing you want to sort of share with folks as the call comes to a close today?
Okay. I didn't realize we've talked that long. This has been fun.
Exactly. It's crazy.
Great. So I want to share a quick story. Gary is working on a sprint right now, and they are just at week 6. So they've gone through their disrupt session, and they're going from 4 options down to 2 for the last part of the sprint. And I suggested that he try a tool called Where to Play, which has one of the worksheets in it has a very nice decision rating system to help people sort through which options you take on and when. And so it's a very powerful tool. I think Lisa may have put the link to the recent blog post that I did for Insights on this. And I'd encourage people to take a look at it. And if you want some information, there's great information there. You can go kind of self-serve it if you want to talk about it. Welcome to give me a call. But it's another one of those really good tools that all of our coaches could, tap into and use. So that would be my closing comments.
Awesome. Well, Ann, as I said, I really enjoy speaking to you. Looking forward to connecting a little bit more as we see more and more opportunities also coming through the marketplace as well. Really great to chat to you, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Have a great day.
Cheerio. Bye. So great chatting to Ann. I cannot believe that we went through the time so quickly. I glanced across the clock and thought, oh, we are at time. Can you believe it? And so amazing. We'll end off today just with a short video about joining our community. So if you're watching this and you're not part of the OpenExO community, just head over to openexo.com/community, and then we'll see you again next week.